for the Moors, English teacher for the Moorish perspective, teaching Spanish. It's been an honor working with the Moors Alike, co-founding an organization based on teaching people about, you know, Moors and Moros and Maroons all over the planet. So it's really been like an honor just to like so far like do what I'm doing. And I just wanted to just share some perspective, some of my beliefs and discontent, and my perspective on some a lot of things just Moorish in the Western Hemisphere. I can't speak on too many things outside of the East Coast of America like that, but um, I will say in this book that I'm reading so far, titled "Que es Islam," that I acquired down in Mariscal, um, Quito province, South America, Ecuador. I went down there out of curiosity and knowing that people that come from Spain were previously Moors, and Moorish culture is written in history as being Moorish culture, aside from 19 the early 1900s being documented over here in the Americas formally. Um, I found it just interesting just to kind of get to know like the psychology, the culture of like Islam from a standpoint of academics, culture, you know, and just like ethics and like habits and mannerisms and things of that nature. Right. So I've really just been stepping into like really just learning and gaining more knowledge of myself, gaining like just culture as a whole, which is essentially the entire mission statement of what the Moors of Light even is. It's a beacon of academic, enlightenment, to show people essentially things that they really don't have the time to put their attention on, listen to, or just study or experience for themselves. So I take a lot of pride in being a Moorish teacher. And in the book, it mentions that a lot of things that I think are beautiful, and some very few things that I don't agree with. I would say the only thing that I don't necessarily agree with when it comes to Islam, me personally speaking, not to offend anybody, is that it's too religious based, and like people like to mix things that have to do with culture and environment a little bit too much with like action. And like I'll start with the things I don't agree with necessarily. I don't necessarily agree with the aspects of forgiveness, especially you know um, being that there's something said about he who repents is just like he who doesn't sin at all or hasn't sinned at all. I don't agree with that at all because there's so many people in this life that you know ruined other people's lives and they know what it's like to ruin other people's lives. And then there's people that have never ruined people's lives and they'll never know what it's like to ruin people's lives and live with that sort of emotion and regret, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily agree entirely with that premise of like forgiveness within this book that I'm reading right here, but I'm just teaching it from an academic perspective. So I'm just really voicing myself in terms of like being able to translate something from one text to another with a Moorish mindset, right? From English to Spanish or Spanish to English with a Moorish mindset. And I don't necessarily agree with the sacrificial aspects as well, being that those are customs that are brought from, um, Asia, Africa, Europe, or Mesopotamia or whatever it may be over there, Persia. But over here in the Americas, I don't think we've ever had to like intentionally make sacrifices like that. But I'm pretty sure that there's a section that addresses that directly. It says um, that like just being a faithful believer and being a good person is the biggest sacrifice you can make. So um, that already kind of like expunged the entire idea of like a sacrifice. And now I'll start with the things that I really did like, right? So one of the things that I really, really liked about this book so far was like, it's constantly reminding that, it's a religion, but when you look at it from a higher perspective of just being like an aspect of reality and a chronological order of history, it's a moorish reality on morality, like how to be a moral man and how to stand up for being like somebody who perfects character and stands up for for their integrity and their justice. Another thing that I really liked was like the wisdom and the discipline, right? Um, the aspects of like wisdom and knowledge being valued and being shared, right? So obviously, what does that look like today? Obviously, sharing wisdom and knowledge today looks a lot like financial literacy. Looks a lot like deeds, county records, DS11, DS85, DS82. Um, looks a lot like UCCs. Looks a lot like USCs. Looks a lot like CFRs. Looks a lot like um, credit bureaus. Looks a lot like collection agencies. Looks a lot like Malse and Malprojevitas and just foundational aspects of our reality today. So I think sharing knowledge and being able to give that to somebody else to apply it into applied mathematics and power is really, really important. And I think that that needs to be emphasized just a little bit more outside of the realms of leverage on a sale. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that. And another aspect that I really, really liked about this book too is that the teaching of zakat or sadaqah, which is like charity, but there's so many forms of charity where it could be as simple as being able to provide groceries for somebody to be able to like stretch out that good gesture for months. I think that that was beautiful, and I think also the rich sharing amongst the rich, like not being shamed for being somebody who has riches, and that looks very, very different when we consider a Moorish paradigm to a modern paradigm, considering how much time has passed and the conditions of, you know, um, civilian life being so radically different. Um, from things like um, irrigation to things like bathing to things like cooking and to things like electricity and shelter, like radically different over these last 600, 700 years. Some people don't really have the basics for those things, not even 700 years ago, and sometimes today, despite today there being so much more development and high populations and things of this nature. But I just really think that, um, you know, the idea of being able to spread your wealth is really, really important. Especially if you're somebody who has power and is able to like use that power for justice. So essentially, again, in modern day, what does that look like? That looks a lot like mentorship. That looks a lot like, um, wealth building, wealth preservation, financial literacy, tactics on how to invest, how to acquire land, self defense, like just basic things, like how to have confidence and how to go into certain administrative procedures and like things of this nature. So um, I would say like those are the number one things that I got out of the book. Essentially, moral character, knowing that at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if you have Islam. Like it even says that the Most High God um, favors those that are just good people at the end of the day. So that's where I'm at with this whole idea of like culture and Moorish contributions to society. Like I don't have to be in a mosque or a temple or a church or a religious organization to essentially be somebody who gives thanks and praise and gratitude to a creator and moral integrity at the end of the day. So that's really where I stand with that. Not that I'm discrediting Islam or Muslim people or nothing like that. I don't have anything against them. I respect them, but um, sometimes my respect doesn't get reciprocated. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that you know equity and reciprocity are things that you have to like really earn. Sometimes for 4 to 6 to 10 to 20 years at a time in dedication to things that may not be so sunshines and rainbows. But that's where I'm at with it because like I didn't come into being a Moor or Moorish. I didn't come into like finding out more about myself from a point of like justice. I didn't come into a stand. I didn't want to be a Moorish American because of like paperwork and because of benefit or because I can call myself an American indigenous person or a descendant or I didn't come into any of this because of the benefits of any of American Indian stuff. I didn't come into this at all on that. I genuinely came into knowledge of self based on my curiosity of like who I am and like how I fit into my family directly, like my relatives, my biological family. So I just really wanted to find out like like where is my family? Who is my family? Nowadays, it seems like your real family are really not biologically centered to you. Like biologically, like relatively speaking, like concerned about us outside of the peripherals of being an infant or a minor that essentially can be taken advantage of. Like nowadays, I see it that a lot of people in my direct biological family are kind of responsible for treason and they didn't really plan for the future of somebody that has the capabilities to essentially do sovereign procedures like start businesses and unlock financial freedom and go on vacations and buy properties and do business with people that I'm able to reconnect with all over the continent, especially Cuba, especially Puerto Rico. So both my paternal lineage and both my maternal lineage, um, I would say like I don't have any animosity towards them, but it's just these people were interest driven and utilized me as a catalyst in between to essentially figure out how to assimilate and how to live in North America at a time where you know, new forms of life are evolving and taking place, especially technologically and financially speaking and politically speaking. And there's a lot of propaganda, but I'm not somebody who's going to hold on to a victim mindset of this has been done to me. And, I could sit here all day and say, like, the Americas is under attack. And I could sit here all day and say that there's a lot of corruption and a lot of military pressure on people. I could sit here all day and talk about conspiracies and I could do that, but like I have to make up for what I always wanted and never had. I have to make up for what I always wanted and never had. And I never had a real father. I never had a real grandfather. I never had people in my life genuinely look out for my future and have a concern for me beyond adolescence and teenage years. I never had anybody really like think about using my potential, but I could easily put myself in a situation of like, damn, these people cock block me and they, ruin my potential from the time that I was, 7 years old all the way until I was 27 years old. like just letting the system or letting society shape and mold my mind and my personality into somebody who's really like Roman, really jockish, really Persian, very subordinate and minor-minded, infantile behavior. And I didn't like the person I was becoming outside of moral science as a whole anyway. So as a result of this, before I came into knowledge of self, my father had committed suicide, and fentanyl and alcohol at the same time exploded arteries within his you know vestibules. His organs exploded because he just couldn't hold it, and I think a lot of that comes from an argument that we had one day that I told him. I was like, yo man, like one day you're gonna have to face God. And lack of leadership within my paternal lineage has left me hurt, wounded for a long time, especially coming into the knowledge of Noble Drew Ali, man. Man, it's people that lived 100 years ago that thought about solutions for generations of people that would be born later on, and all it really came down to was a passport. But by the time that I realized power of this passport, I was already too far deep into these hard money loans through the Social Security and the debt that I have in school. So now I kind of feel like my only way out is service. I've had children in Cuba. I've had children in Cuba that look at me like a soldier, and I have to tell them that I'm not a soldier. Oh shit! So I'm really just expressing a lot of like grief and just like upset with just myself and a lot of the events that occurred and this hard decision that I have to decide what I want to do. with my life as a man, as a moorish man in America. So I have to make a decision, and I don't want to throw Moorish Americans under the bus. But I've had conversations with guys that's making $30,000 a month sometimes. I've had conversations with Moorish Americans telling me millions of dollars that they've made, and I've been struggling with just trying to have an abode, a domicile, mental stability, love, support, being able to just stay in Puerto Rico, being able to just stay in Florida, being able to just stay in Cuba, like Caribbean area, where my body genetically actually needs those medicines and those natural elements. But I feel weak, and society feels like a psyop, and it's making me weaker and weaker. And I'm constantly being emasculated by my peers, constantly being put into a menagerie that I don't want to honor in honor of CM Bay and all the knowledge that he's bestowed on me. And I hold so much integrity for Moorish Americans, and I feel super unappreciated, man. It's unbelievable how hard I've fought for people that have never even touched my hands, and how much money I've spent, and how much sanity I've given to this movement. And I've been betrayed like over and over with these nationality processes and people taking money from me and scamming me, calling me a troglodyte and a half breed and a one drop blooded American and all this other crazy shit. But you know, I know who to honor at the end of the day. You know, I got people like Cordova L telling me my music is wonderful. I got people like Asir telling me that I'm the future. I got people like Pastor eBay telling me that I'm his cousin. I got homeless Moors in the street telling me that I'm their brother. Yeah, no. There's other Moors that decide to, you know, flash their bank statements in my face and try to sell me a plane or try to get me to fly over to the Philippines and make deals for natural resources and betray the Moors over there based on me being a privileged American citizen and all of this contradiction, morality that I just not going to stand for. Being that there's people in my family directly that are completely indoctrinated, and some of them in Cuba don't even have shower heads. Some people in Cuba don't even have rooftops. Some people in Cuba don't even have spaghetti right now. And all it takes is literally like, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, $20,000 for me to like be happy. And I'm not able to retain any amount of money based on, you know, my moral integrity doesn't allow me to take advantage of people and just sell them some shit for fucking vanity. So, you know, I put this Moorish thing to the test to the maximum. I'm one of the only people that used the Moorish American travel document and stood on my square with no passport to even take planes with an appellation that was never even issued federally. You know, I tried to go to Cuba with that and I got shut down. And that's when I realized I needed to listen to other Moors as opposed to those within the Mahdi movement who are essentially getting people hemmed up in dire situations and nonsense. Essentially, people just tricking us into believing that we had to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, you know, like man, I gave my heart to this movement, bro, and I live my life every day like it's my last. You know, I try to do the right thing Like I said, like I just want the things that I've never had, which is a grandfather and a father and a really good wife and just a simple life, man. Like I just want to live a simple life, man. But it seems like my moral integrity always puts me in a situation of maturity that supersedes anything but normality. So, like I said, I know that Bahira Anita Anu and Sister Ross Bay and so many other Moors have said so many amazing things online that have really left a super strong impression on me to be an upstanding character person and stand in integrity and gratitude for the perspectives that they were able to show outside of propaganda and race. So I just wanted to express myself on here and really like hold other Moors accountable for essentially like not losing a brother, but being mean, just being like nasty to the point of like not really caring for me outside of what I can offer them money wise or marketing wise. And that's another thing too. Like I did so much marketing, 5+ years of marketing for free and investing in and using money that I could have used for myself and for my student debt and all this other stuff, my overhead and my health, my mental peace and serenity. I used so much of my efforts to like try to gain relationships with autochthonous Americans, moorish Americans, and people from all over the continent. And I'm constantly disrespected. So this is why I'm making my decision to serve. And I feel like I'm serving anyway, so I might as well serve at the highest level. So I'm just like really disappointed, and even my own mother, I'm disappointed in my father's family, being that they have the basic needs. Like I have people in my father's family that have houses, empty houses at that. That's all I need is just a place to like live and get a job. That's really all I need. But it's been 12 years since I graduated high school, and I haven't been able to sustain that with enough peace of mind to stand up for morality and my relationship with God. So I hope that this message is empowering. I hope that it was powerful. And I love my brothers at the Moors of Light, but I'm not gonna throw all the responsibility on them when I really don't even want to be on the internet. I'm really just on the internet here because I know that I'm being called for something greater, and I would like to never have to work again. And you know, at a place that I don't want to be at, and I would like to be able to just collect electronic money through securities and bonds, and dirty underwriters invested in the destruction of original peoples in this continent are taking major advantages of us in geographical regions of North and South. So, like I'm biting the bullet with this one, and I'm just straight up with it. I'm just straight up with it. And if you're somebody who's mature enough to understand my situation, and we've ever met before, whether you betrayed me or turned on me or have an impression of me or I ever said something that was out of pocket or out of line, like I really don't even care, like because at the end of the day, when I get up in the morning, it's just me and somebody else's couch, or it's just me with somebody else's money. It's just me with somebody else's family giving them more advice than my own family, and it's just me outshining everybody as the black sheep in this situation here. So, um, I have immense integrity and immense pride for what I'm doing, bro. So, yeah, I hope that you guys really enjoyed that.